welcome to Thrilling Thursday. No, it is not. Soulful Sunday here at Ariel's Corner. This is Ariel Gatoga, and we are streaming live on YouTube. And moderating today on YouTube are the lovely Jason and the lovely Dre. Thank you so... Is that right? The lovely Jason and the lovely Vanessa. The lovely Jason and the lovely Dre. Thank you so much, moderators, and thank you so much to everybody for joining us today. I am awake. I've had my coffee. It just doesn't seem like it. We'll get to our lecture in just a moment. We don't have any premiere today, and we are off on Monday and Tuesday, but we'll be back on Wednesday for our normal week, starting with Witchy Wednesday. Our magic streams are 10:15 Pacific time every day, every morning, Wednesday through Sunday, and we take Monday and Tuesday off. Our website is located at arielscorner.com, arielscorner.com. That's where you're going to find all of our courses and our lectures, our free booklets. Everything's free there. Please check it out if you haven't done so already. arielscorner.com. Our podcast hub is located at arielspodcasts.com, and that's where you'll find all of the different podcasts arranged a little bit more neatly than what we can arrange them on YouTube, arielspodcasts.com. Our shop is located at arielscornershop.com, arielscornershop.com. You can get mugs and t-shirts there right now, and we'll have some hoodies probably next week there as well. Please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. If you'd like to donate to this channel, you can do that by going to paypal.me/arielgatoga, paypal.me/arielgatoga. If you're live with us on YouTube and you feel like donating, you can use a super sticker or super chat right in the chat thread. Or if you're on a restream, you could use a super thanks. We do appreciate your support, and we appreciate you for being here today and every day that you're with us. Let's see, do I have any other announcements? Oh yeah, we have a chat thread going, so if you have any thing that you want to chat about, please chat amongst yourselves. Boy, it's loud out there. They've got the leaf blowers, so I'm sorry if that's too loud for you. Hopefully they stop soon. Just maybe if I just chat for a minute before I start the lecture, they'll be done with that soon. I'm the only one around here on Sunday, so it makes sense that they're blowing leaves on Sunday, so I can't get too mad because, you know, who needs leaves unblown? Let's see, what else was I going to tell you? Oh yeah, if you have any questions for me, you can put them right in the chat thread, and I will do my best to get right to them before the end of the stream. All right, well, I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, so we'll just get going. If you're in a place where it is safe and appropriate, please close your eyes and begin to take some nice, long, slow, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more light and peace entering your body and mind. With every exhale, feel like you are letting go of, With every exhale, feel like you're letting go of everything that you do not want in your mind, along with all the tension in your body. Inhaling peace and exhaling as you let go. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove with a sacred golden light. This is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it burns away everything unlike itself, leaving us safe and serene. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves to be a mother and father, a goddess and God. We also call upon our angels, our guides and teachers, and we ask that they join us and guide us as we walk upon the way, helping us to become happier, more peaceful, and more loving people. Blessed be. Well, I thought that was going to stop because it started getting really quiet. So maybe I can only hear it, but boy, it's loud. But I'll try not to let it distract me as much as possible. Today, I would like to talk about the idea of new beginnings. One of the ego's tools that it likes to use to keep us stuck is the idea of the idea that if you make a mistake, you're done. You may as well just forget about it. You can't come back. And it'll do it very subtly sometimes. Like, for instance, if you've been building up a meditational practice and then you fall off for a few weeks, it'll say, well, you've fallen off for a few weeks, so why bother starting again? And if you have been really working on yourself as far as your ability to stay calm in certain situations and you lose your cool, then the ego will tell you, well, you lost your cool, so you're not very good at this, so don't bother with that anymore, etc. And we kind of believe that hypnotic spell that we are put under, that we are bound by our mistakes, and there's nothing we can really do about that, so why bother? And sometimes it's very overt. The ego is very overt with that, if it can get away with it. But frequently the ego realizes that if it gets too overt, that we make choices to disregard the ego. So it likes to keep things a little more subtle, and often will just sprinkle breadcrumbs along a certain path that we end up following that takes us farther and farther away from what I call, or what Crowley called, our true will. Now, if the true will is a concept that you're not familiar with, just very, very briefly, it's the idea that each and every one of us is a unique expression of and extension of the infinite. And that there's not one person on the planet that is more or less important than anyone else. Just like there's no star in the sky that is more or less important than any other star. There's no flower in the garden that's more or less important than any other flower. Some flowers are more dramatic than others, but that doesn't mean they're more important. Just because you're not a rose doesn't mean that you're not an important flower. And much like the nasturtiums don't cry that they're not roses, we don't need to compare ourselves to other people because nobody can compare to us. When people are in competition for the attention of another person, etc., it's belaying the idea that they don't understand that no one can compete against them because they're the only them that exist. Just like we each have a thumbprint, we each have a facial structure that's unique to us. We also have a unique soul print, and we are a unique expression of or extension of the infinite. And as such, that unique extension holds with it the coding, if you will, for a perfect life. And that coding, that coding, coding, it's like like computer coding, that coding is our true will. And if we are working within our true will, things seem to happen well for us. And when we are outside of our true will, things don't seem to happen well for us. And when more people are working along the lines of their true will, there is more harmony in the world. Whereas when people are working at odds with their true will, there is less harmony in the world. Now, two people that are completely at one with their true will can never oppose one another, can never get in each other's way. There's enough resources for everybody to complete whatever their tasks are that their true will has for them to complete, their mission, if you will. So if you're really committed to finding and walking your true path in this world, the universe responds by giving you everything that you need to do that in abundance, and you never have any conflict with anybody else in regards to that. So that's just that in a nutshell, that concept of true will. Now, when you get off of your path, which is what the ego mind will have us do, and let's talk about that for a moment before we get into the meat of all of this. Why in the world? This is a great question, and it comes up, and it should come up. Why in the world did a loving creator create an ego for us to constantly tempt us off of our true path? And it's the truth of that is that the creator didn't create an ego. We did. The creator has nothing to do with our egos. So in reality, our egos don't exist. They're an illusion. They're a nothing. They're a dream that we concocted. And we do it together as a group mind. And just like we have an oversoul, like when we all as souls on our true path, with our true will, are expressions of the divine, together we are one oversoul, each with its own specific role to play. Just like all the different organs in your body have different roles to play, or different species on the planet have different roles to play. Different species of plants have different roles to play. There's an ecosystem. The same thing is true with the oversoul of humanity. We each have our own roles to play. And much like that, now that is frequently called the holy child of the infinite, or in Christic terms, it's the Son of God or Christ. But from a witchcraft perspective, it's the one true being that we are, the one true holy child of the infinite that we all are. And that does not, I don't want to get stuck on this too much because I do want to get into the meat of this, but the idea that we are all one does not negate the idea that we are each individuals. But if you look at the word individual, it means indivisible. And the ego mind is not individual, it's divided. The ego mind is an idea of dividing ourselves from the whole, dividing ourselves from our source. The ego comes from a thought that was contemplated by the holy child of the infinite of I am separate. What would it like to be separate from each other? What would it like to be separate and alone? What would it be like to be different than and separate from the creator? Well, our minds are creative. Our minds are powerful, and we can create an experience of whatever we desire. That doesn't make that experience objectively real, but it does make it real for us. So the idea that we're all dreaming dreams of separation and having an experience of a world in which we are all separate from one another and having to fight for resources and having to work overtime to find any sense of harmony with one another is an effect. It's a product of our contemplation of the idea of separateness. So the ego mind is nothing more than a thought system born from the idea of I am separate. So that's that. So the infinite didn't create the ego, and that's why the ego doesn't exist, but we are free to think anything we want to. So we can think things that don't exist. And that's how we get this illusory world, because that's how powerful our minds are. Okay, so there's that. So the true will is not at odds with any other true will, nor is it at odds with the creator, and yet each will is perfectly unique. The concept of the ego is that thought system that is a habit that we have gotten into that is constantly trying to take us out of our unity, to take us out of our true will, because our true will is indivisible, is individual. So the reason why that's true is because we programmed this part of our mind to do that. And then we fell asleep to that idea, so that it looks like and it feels like things are happening to us in this world. And we forgot that we, as a species, as a collective, thought this. And that is depicted in magical metaphysical terms as the fall of Lucifer. And Lucifer's resurrection, or Lucifer's rising, is the idea of remembering that none of that's true, that we really are one, and that we are indivisible. Okay, so now we've got that out of the way. So part of the ego mind is constantly trying to reinforce its narrative that we're separate, reinforcing its narrative that we're separate. And one of the ways it does that is that anytime we make a mistake or we fall off of our path, it tries to convince us, well, it's all over now, and there's no way back. So don't even try. So let's just stay separate. Let's just stay on this other path, because you're ruined. You're damaged goods. You made a mistake. And what happens is that since it's learned through trial and error that the best way to keep us stuck is to do things subtly and to keep our minds busy on other things, we are so busy we don't stop to question that that's what we're thinking. And so we take these ideas of, I can't start over, I'm bound by my mistakes, I'm bound to my past, with us, and we're not hyper-cognizant of the fact that all of our motivations are colored by those ideas. And so we have interactions with our careers, with our spouses, with our friends, with our coworkers, with money, with our car, with our property, with our whatever is going on on the screen of space, interacting with those things as if we're damaged goods, as if we're bound by our mistakes and we can't start again. We can't be happy, really. So we have to find other ways to substitute something for that happiness that we can't find because we've messed up. And, that's one of the only positive uses of the concept of original sin. The idea of original sin is usually something that's used to abuse young children into thinking that they're not good enough so that they can be controlled. But in reality, the idea of original sin is important from the perspective of it shows us the original lie, that somehow we could sully ourselves, that somehow we could be less than, somehow we could make our Creator stop loving us and get mad at us. And from the Creator's point of view, none of that even exists. But from the ego's point of view, that's everything. And what we do is we fall unconscious to our own power of thinking and projecting experiences onto the screen of space. And we are under this false assumption that we are not good enough, we're less than, and there's nothing we can do about it. So let's just make our way in the world the best we can. And so what we do is we start to substitute our happiness with other things, like money, like relationships, sex, food, you name it. All of the things in the world, alcohol, drugs, everything. And none of these things are inherently good or bad, but we are making them into our own personal idols. And what an idol is something finite and restrictive, whereas your true will is boundless and universal. So the idols that we choose to worship in this world are not the problem. It's the idea that we believe that they can make us satisfied. We believe that they can bring us some sense of happiness, or at least a substitute for happiness. And what we don't understand is every time we go to one of those idols out in the world to bring us what we think is going to bring us happiness, we are turning our back on our true will. Because the idols represent limitation. the belief that happiness can be found in a specific form or a specific thing, and that by narrowing your focus to these things, you can somehow gain fulfillment. You're saying, I don't need everything. I'll just have this one thing. This one thing is plenty. I don't need everything. I just need sex. I don't need everything. I just need money. But this approach will never satisfy us, because the deeper truth that we organically will always search for is only to be found in our true will, only to be found in our completeness. Chasing idols is what leads to an idea of loss, but embracing the truth of our true will grants us everything. And the joke of all of that is that many of the things that we're seeking as idols are just given to us when we work with our true will. Seeking the money, well, the money just happens organically when we're working our true will. The relationship that we think is so important just starts happening for us. And the unhealthy addictions, the unhealthy things that we're chasing, cease to have an attraction to us anymore. We cease to be attracted to the things that are unhealthy for us when we are involved in our true will. The true will sorts those things out for us. Because what we really seek is that true will, and that true will cannot be found in any single form. No single form can replace the boundless love that we are. Love under will. Love under will. Which will are we under? We are under the divine will. And we are an expression of divine will. And we can't stop that. We can't make that not be true, but we can hide from that truth. We can forget that truth. We can create barriers to our expression of that truth. So when we realize this, we understand that we really don't desire these things that we think we do, these idols, because these things never can fulfill the longing that is within us. The only thing that can fulfill the longing that is within us is our true will. So instead of allowing our true will to become narrowed into personal ego will and reduced to something that is small and finite and mortal and that can end, our true will is immortal and can never end. It's not your true will for something. Our true will is not for something limited. Our true will is for everything limitless and complete. Limitless and complete. And these idols that we search for are all what is limited and incomplete. Now, the search for these things stems from a desire to be whole. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's just a misdirected, misguided understanding of what our true desire is. Because true will, true desire, can't have a form ultimately because it's limitless. When you seek a specific person or a specific object to fill a perceived lack or void or gap, you are affirming the belief that something within you is missing. And nothing is missing in your true will because you were created perfect. And when you find the thing that you think is going to make you happy, it may seem like in the moment that you found the key to your completion and your completeness, but that's the very function of the ego's search for idols in the first place, to distract you, to divert your attention away from your true will. They keep you fixated on the surface and masking the core belief that you are incomplete. Because if you saw that belief for what it is, the idea that I'm incomplete, I'm separate, if you saw that for what it was, you'd say, well, I don't believe that. That can't be true. You'd want to change that belief. So that's why the ego doesn't like to be too overt with these things. Keeps you busy. How busy are we chasing our idols? That's the function of them, keeping us busy, keeping us fixated on the surface, on the that which is separate, and masking our true will. We have to remember that when we catch ourselves chasing these idols, that the ego, once we recognize it, the ego will use that as a weapon against us and say, well, you've been seeking idols. You're doing everything that is the antithesis to your true will. So you got to stop. You're done. You're doomed. There's no beginning again. You can't start again. You can't start again because you've ruined it. You've destroyed it. And again, it's never that overt usually, unless we're in a real deep depression. Sometimes when we're in the deep throes of depression, the ego can be a lot more obvious because it just feeds into itself that way. But frequently, it won't be that obvious because it knows that it doesn't want to be busted. Because if we bust the ego, the gig is up. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing it can do. There's nothing it can do to save itself once we recognize it for what it is. So it does like to stay in the shadows. So when you get that fleeting moment when you're doing anything, this idea of, why even bother? I've already screwed up. Rethink that. Recognize it for what it is and say, no, there's no way for me to, quote, sin. I can't. No matter what I think I've done or haven't done in the world of form, no matter which idols I've been chasing that have been diverting me away from my true will and how committed I have been to those idols, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference to the infinite. The infinite doesn't even notice those things. The only thing the infinite notices is how wonderful we are, how gorgeous we are, how beautiful we are. The infinite wants us to be awake and happy. That's its will for us, but it also understands that we have the freedom to do as we will. So we can be asleep to our perfection. We can be asleep to our happiness. We can chase these things that are only going to increase our distraction, increase our misunderstanding, increase our confusion. And even though the infinite always has given us a way out of that, like the Ariadne's thread out of the labyrinth, and we are always capable of finding our way out of that when we want to, it has to be our decision. It has to come from us. And the best way for us to retrain ourselves is just in the moment. Just in the moment. When you notice that you're feeling deflated because something didn't work out, usually it's because you were chasing after something that was not capable of bringing you happiness. It was a carrot that was being dangled in front of your nose. And when you either reacted in a way that you didn't like, or you were chasing after something and you failed, or you succeeded and it didn't bring you happiness, whatever the reason for your dissatisfaction, the ego's always going to be whispering in your ear, look what you did. You may as well just give up. Just give up. None of this is worth it. You can't come back from this. And when you notice that that's happening, you have to wake up. You have to go, wake up. There is nothing that you can't come back from. And remind yourself of that. There's nothing I can't come back from. I don't care what it is. There's nothing I can't come back from. Now, I just maybe a couple days ago, I noticed this in myself. I've been so, because naturally my personality is very fiery, and I, like many people that with fiery personalities, I can have a bit of a temper, and I can be kind of mean. I can be kind of a jerk if I'm not careful. And I've gone through many years of working on that. not suppressing it, but really working on that, really finding ways to navigate that that are positive. For one thing, if I'm feeling very angry at somebody, I'll call upon my archangel, Samael, who's very fiery and understands anger, and ask that it be transmuted. Ask Samael to help me find a way to use this energy in a constructive way. Rather than suppressing the anger, because that never works, because then it'll just come out in some other way, even worse. But to find a way to transmute it, to find a way to focus that energy in a way that's constructive, right? So I've been really good about that over the past, I'd say, 30 years. I mean, people that knew me when would tell you, boy, Ariel is such a different person. He's always been sweet, always been nice. We've always loved him, but boy, could he fly off the handle, right? I don't really do that so much anymore, except when it's at a company, when it's AT&T or, one of those big companies that I feel are, taking their customers for granted and, really exploiting their customer base and things like that. I get so angry. And I notice myself, I'm flying off the handle. I was better this last time because I didn't direct it at the person I was speaking to. I didn't raise my voice. I said, I understand that it's not you and you're just doing your job, but this is what I want you to tell your company. And it wasn't bad. I mean, I'd grade myself maybe about a C as far as how I dealt with it. But afterward, I remember ruminating and thinking, oh, look, all of those years that you've worked on yourself, wasted, just gone. You destroyed all of that work on yourself, blah, 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 blah. And I was just feeling so bad about myself. And then I noticed what I was saying, and I said, no, that's not true. I did really well. I didn't do perfectly, but I did really well. And I'm sure there will be another opportunity in the future where I will be confronted with one of these situations from one of these companies again, and I'll even do better. And I just talked myself through it. I just talked myself out of it, and I got back on to my true will rather than letting the ego use it against me in a real subtle way, making me feel bad about myself for maybe not rising to the occasion in the best way that I could have, but I did all right. I didn't do that poorly. I did okay, right? But the ego didn't want me to see that. So when you're walking through your life, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to get back on the horse. And the ego will want to lull you to sleep into thinking, why bother? You've ruined it. You're a failure. Who do you think you are to be able to make a mistake and come back from it? And when that happens, that's a great time to call upon whatever higher power you think you have, whatever you call it. You whether it has a name or not. Your guide, your guardian angel, your higher self, your true will, God, goddess, Hecate, whatever your higher power is called for you, and say, help me through this, please. Help me through this. Help me start again. And just like the sun comes up in the morning, you get to start again too. And you don't have to wait till the sun to come up in the morning to start again. You can start again right now. And you can just tell yourself, I'm starting over, rebooting. I'm turning it off and turning it back on again, just like when my computer is not working so well. I'm going to reboot my day. Turn it off and turn it on again. And you call upon that higher power and you ask for help. I want to see this differently. I want something new instead of this. I want my true will instead of this. And that is your right. That is your inalienable right. You have a birthright to experiencing your true will. And if you've been diverted from your true will, join the club. It's the most common thing in the world. In fact, something that's not common in this world is staying on the true will or getting back on the horse, because most of us will listen to the lies of the ego and just stay stuck and say, what's the point? Because of my mistakes that I'm bound by. and never really question it, never really even realize how we're thinking. That's why I like those exercises where we just write out our thoughts on a piece of paper for a page. What am I thinking? And don't edit it. Just let it come up. And when you see all the nonsense that your ego is going on and on about, you realize, oh, well, no wonder I feel so bad. But I have free will, and I can change these thoughts anytime I want to. And I can begin again right now. And that's the one good thing, that's one of the things about the rosary I love, is it puts us in touch with that Holy Mother, the Shekinah. But if you don't like the rosary, you don't need that. You can just call upon the goddess or the Shekinah or the Holy Spirit or the Mother or whatever you call her or it. And say, I want to start again. I want you to undo the consequences from my past mistake. And so it will be done. That's called grace. Grace is your birthright also. People think grace is something that we don't deserve, but because God's such a nice dude that he's going to do it for us anyway, even though we don't deserve it. That's not how the infinite sees it at all. Grace is simply us awakening to the realization that our true will is the only truth, and anything that isn't our true will was a nightmare, was a diversion, was a dream. And grace is simply waking up to the truth again. And when we wake up to the truth of who we are, and we wake up to the realization and understanding that the infinite doesn't hold anything against us, then we're not at the effect of these idols. We're not at the effect of this ego, because we don't have anything to worry about. We don't have anything to protect. We don't have any reason to defend anything, because we are invincible as our true will. We are immortal as our true will. We are eternal as our true will. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen to the sun. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen to the stars. They're going to burn and burn and burn no matter what you do. No matter what little game we're playing here on Earth. The stars are still going to shine. The earth is still going to spin. The sun is still going to shine. Well, you're no different than those stars and that sun. You're going to continue to shine. But the ego wants to convince you that you're this little nothing. Little me. That's bound by my mistakes. And the infinite maybe is going to be nice enough to me to grant me some grace, even though I don't deserve it. That's nonsense. All of that's just nonsense by the ego. Don't buy any of it from your own mind, and definitely don't buy it from anybody that's talking to you. No matter what you think you've done or didn't do, you get to begin again right now. And all of your mistakes and the consequences of your mistakes are wiped clean. Now, that doesn't mean that in this world that you aren't going to have to clean up your mistakes, that you aren't going to have to make amends or do what needs to be done in this world. But if you understand that this world is just a temporary dream, when you understand that and you come back to the truth and the reality in your conscious mind that you are innocent and that you are divine and that you are not bound by your mistakes, miraculous things happen in the cleaning up of those old mistakes. Because you recognize that the universe isn't holding any of it against you. Therefore, the universe is there to help you clean it up and make it right in the three-dimensional world as well. But you got to start with your mind. You got to start with the invisible world. And that invisible world is always the causative plane. And according to truth, you are perfect. And you can't undo your perfection no matter how hard you try. And you are not bound by your mistakes. You are not bound by your past. And any moment you can begin again. And I encourage you to begin again, over and over and over again, until it sticks, until it clicks. And you don't have to keep doing that, because you become habituated to the idea that every moment is new. And then you are always beginning again at each moment. You are innocent, You are perfect, and you are not bound by your mistakes. The idea of being forgiven can feel nice, and I understand why a lot of people like that. Well, I'm not perfect, I'm just forgiven. But from an occult perspective, that doesn't work. Why would the infinite forgive you if it didn't condemn you in the first place? The infinite never condemned you because the infinite knows you're perfect. Doesn't care what seems to have happened in this world that doesn't really exist ultimately. So you don't need the infinite to forgive you. To get the grace of the infinite, you need to awaken to the fact that that's your birthright. And anything that you did or didn't do that was at odds with your true will didn't really happen. It only happened within the realm of this nightmare. And since it didn't happen, there's nothing to be forgiven for. But you have to allow yourself to awaken to your true will and commit to that and start again. Because the moment that you believe that you're bound by those mistakes, then you're going to believe that what's the point of trying again anyway? And you don't want to get caught up in that ego game. Every moment is a new moment. You deserve to begin again, and I want you to begin again this very instant and continue each instant from now on. And anytime you notice that you are feeling bound by your mistakes or feeling bad and feeling like, what's the point? Remind yourself, I'm caught up in a dream. I'm caught up in a nightmare, and I want to awaken from it right now. I'm going to call upon my higher power and ask that I be shown the truth instead of this. I'm going to call upon the grace that is my birthright and get back to the work that I came here to do, which is the work of my true will. Thank you very much for joining me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be. Ça plane pour moi. Okay. Is there a... Oh, here we go. And how to find the true will. The true will, not the false true will. How to find the true will. You ask for it. You ask for it. That's one of the benefits of having a meditation practice. If you have a meditation practice, you learn how to still the mind even for an instant. And when your mind is still and cracked open, it flashes across your mind. It flashes across the screen of your mind what you're here to do. And what you're here to do usually involves what brings you the most joy, what makes your heart sing. And your true will is everything you love. And like I said, the sick joke of the whole thing is the idols that we seek for outside of ourselves that cause us to become separated from our true will are the very things that will frequently happen spontaneously for us when we're not chasing after them, but we are connected to that true will. Those things just show up for us naturally. Or if they didn't show up for us naturally, they'll show up for us when we ask for them. But not making those things more important than the true will. So your true will is that which you are. It is that which you are. It is the part of you that is the most authentic. And you do that. Sometimes it takes time in the world to discover what that is. But remember, ultimately, it can't be discovered because it can't be codified. It can't be classified. It can't be defined and objectified. It's the understanding and the experience that you are an extension of perfection and not usually what we believe we are, which is a separate being that needs to defend ourselves, that needs to protect ourselves, that needs to manipulate in order to get what we want, all of those things. So the true will is the magical part of you. It's the magical truth of who you are, and everything else is an illusion. Where is the exit of the long night's dark and the lonely of the soul? Well, The soul doesn't go through a dark night. That's another misnomer. That's the big lie of the ego, is that there is such a thing as a dark night of the soul. The soul doesn't have dark nights. The soul's never depressed. The soul is never anything other than aware of its perfection. And when you are at one with your soul, you're at one with your true will. The phenomenon of the dark night of the soul is frequently the dissonance between the ego and the soul, and the ego finally losing out, which it has to, because it doesn't really exist. The ego is a parasite, but it doesn't really exist in the grand scheme of things. So it can't win because it doesn't exist. But since, like I said, we are free to think as we will, and we as a species are free to think as a group as we will, we have come up with a lot of lies. And one of these lies is that of the ego, that we're separate and that we're not good enough. So as we grow in spiritual understanding, we do very frequently hit that brick wall where the ego is up against it. And we have to let go. We have to let go of that ego in favor of the soul. And to the degree that we identify with the ego, when we think that's who we are, it does feel like a dark night of the soul. But understand that it's not the soul that's having the dark night. It's the ego that's having the dark night. So it is a misnomer. That's a great question. So the exit of that is the understanding of who you are, the understanding of who you truly are, the realization of the truth of your true will, the realization and understanding that you can't have a dark night, that you can't be depressed, that you can't be sick, all of those things. The ego doesn't want to give that stuff up very easily, and it will give you tons of evidence to support how none of that's true, because the world is its oyster, literally. So the ego will point to all kinds of things in the physical world to say, no, that's not true. You are limited. You are depressed. You are sick. Everything's bad. That is depressing. That is a darkness. But when you start to give that up, and it doesn't matter what evidence the ego points to make its point, the ego doesn't have any more power over you, and you do start to experience things from the perspective of your soul rather than your ego. Now, once you're completely enlightened, and you're not beholden by your ego anymore, things don't seem to really change that much, other than you're happier, and you probably start getting more of the things that you want in this world that will support your work here. And like I said, many of those things are what you've been after as idols anyway, and things just start to work out for you better. But onlookers might say, wow, they seem a little happier, but it's not like you're just all of a sudden this different being. You're still the same you. It's just that you're the you that's no longer controlled by your ego. And then your job is less overcoming your ego tendencies as it is helping other people who are going through whatever they're going through. Right? And frequently, by helping other people in the moment is the way that we overcome our own ego tendencies. So that's one of the ways that, if you're going through what people call the dark night of the soul, one of the ways out of that is to find ways to help others. Just like when you're going through a loss, many times when people have lost a child, or just horrible things have happened, or they've lost a limb, or they've lost, they've gone through major loss. Sometimes the only thing that can pull them out of that is by offering help and service to other people. And the reason why that's true is because the ego can't exist in energy of compassion. There's nothing it can say or do. It has no power in the presence of compassion. So frequently that can be another way through things. I know a lot of times in different 12-step programs, when somebody's really in the midst of it all and their sponsor says, well, it's time for some service. They say, well, I can't do service. I can barely wake up in the morning. What are you talking about? But the sponsor knows that by serving, by giving, by helping, by being a force for true helpfulness, that it speeds up that recovery process. It pulls them out of a lot of that, and things start to fall into place organically, just because they've been helpful. They've been not do-gooders, but being there as service, being there to be of service to humanity. So the degree that I know for myself, when I'm going through something, the degree to which I am willing to be of service to humanity on whatever level happens to be in front of me at that moment. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything grandiose. It can just be as simple as helping somebody move or something. But where can I be of service? The universe will show you. Where can I be of service? The universe will say, here. And a lot of times, we want to do something big, and like, I'm going to do something huge that's going to make such a big difference. But the universe will be like, well, let's start with this. Why don't you help this person move? Or why don't you take some food over to this family? Or why don't you, whatever, give somebody a ride? Let's start with what's in front of you. And when you just are asking, how can I be of service? How can I contribute? How can I help? How can I be truly helpful? The universe shows you. Here you go. And when you say yes to that, very frequently you are pulled right out of that dark night of the soul and into something much more real. So hopefully that was helpful. All right, well, those are great questions. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to the amazing moderators, Jason and Dre. And I will see everybody on Wednesday for Witchy Wednesday. Yay. Until then, blessed be.